example, okay? If somebody says, we said, what do you value the most? And they said, oh, I value time with my family the most. And then at work, they're offered a position that means a whole lot more money, or a corner office, or a better title, or more people under them, but it also means they'll virtually get no time with their family. And they take the job. Then tell me, is their greatest value time with their family, or is it something else I just mentioned? The way that we live reflects the values that we truly have. If we ask a person, is the Sermon on the Mount important to you? If we asked a Christian, a regular church-going person, if I asked you, is the Sermon on the Mount important to you? Is it important that Jesus calls you to love your enemies? Is it important that Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself? Is it important when Jesus says, if you're angry with your brother or sister, boy, it's like murdering them in your heart? Is it important that Jesus says that if you call your brother or sister a fool, then you are subject to judgment? Is the Sermon on the Mount important to you? If I ask you that, and we would hear people say, well, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. Absolutely, it's important to me. And then we watch our country, our families, our churches, our friendships divided over politics. And I'm not going to get into politics. I'm not doing that. But I do believe Jesus' heart is grieved by the division in our families, our friendships, and our churches, and our country right now. And yet, we say, this is important to me. Following Jesus is important to me. Living up to what he commands of me is important to me. And yet, we go online and we write that you're a fool for believing this. You're a sheep for believing this. We call each other names. And yet, we paint whatever side of the aisle we're not on in the worst possible light. And we're okay with it? We call them our enemies. We make them, it's impossible for us to be in the same room because they share this, they have this belief. The way that we live reflects what we truly value. Do we really believe that Jesus calls us to love our neighbor? Is your life reflecting that? Do you believe that Jesus calls you to love your enemies? Is your life reflecting that? Do you believe that Jesus says if you're angry in your heart, you might as well be murdering your brother? Is your life reflecting that? Because I find this so painful to watch. The church should be a beacon in this time. And yet, the church is falling into the same patterns of the world around us. If there is a broad gate and a narrow gate, it seems like often we are choosing the broad gate because it's easier, it feels better, rather than choosing the one that's narrow, rather than choosing love. God is love. God is love. And Jesus tells us how to do that. Love your neighbor as yourself. He says, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. The way we live reflects our true value.